friends, so welcome to my office. It is, as you can tell, still a work in progress, but you can kind of see a mule back there, my little doll. And then I'm setting up a little altar crystal station over here. You can see I've got like some witchy stuff, including the tarot cards. Yep. So I wanted to do a video series or some videos that are more researched and are commentaries on representation in media from mental health issues and disabilities. As a writer myself, I really appreciate the new media that's been coming out, really facing like the hard issues and really trying to represent issues properly instead of stereotypically. And I want to talk about specifically today a character that many people are familiar with, but maybe not familiar with the fact that she not confirmed, but may have an eating disorder. So let's talk about that. I do want to give a warning that because The Simpsons is a comedy, sometimes these situations might be taken lightly or played into excess as a comedic effect. This is, again, it's like a level of satire, but I do think that there are levels and times where The Simpsons can be problematic or might have been problematic in the past. So the question is, does Lisa Simpson have an eating disorder? And what would it take for an 8-year-old like Lisa Simpson to develop an eating disorder? And I want to talk about, there's some clear warning signs here with Lisa and her body issues and how we might combat those when we're young, and also how we might combat those personally as people who are suffering with issues with body, with diet culture and issues with our bodies. Lisa Simpson early on is presented as an outcast, generally because of her intelligence or her moral tenacity, or just for being generally strong-willed. It's not often that Lisa will sink to peer pressure, but she does feel lonely and her peers generally don't accept her. And this is really tough. So there are many episodes chronicling, Lisa's battle between her own moral integrity and just trying to fit in. When you look at an earlier episode in the 4th season, this is one of the first episodes where you see Lisa struggling with her body image. She goes to a cartoonist, he draws her, and when she looks at the picture, she doesn't like what she sees.
Okay, you can turn around now.
Oh my God, I'm ugly.
Lisa is absolutely inconsolable about this. Her dad tries to come in there, kind of laughs at the picture because Homer is Homer, of course. And he, doesn't understand why she doesn't think that she's beautiful because that's all he can see. So in an effort to prove to her that she's just as beautiful as he sees, he signs her up for a beauty contest. Of course, Lisa does not want to do this, but her dad traded something really important to him to get her in with the entrance, to get the entrance fee for the contest.
Did you see Tina Epstein? Whoa, if you're gonna binge, you better purge.
Now, this is where you hear maybe your first kind of even hint at eating disordered behavior in this show, at least to my knowledge, and specifically around Lisa. Of course, Lisa doesn't partake in this conversation, but overhears it and overhears 2 other girls say something that I personally see as pretty problematic. But it is a joke, and it is to prove or push this idea that these expectations for young girls are already so high. Lisa does decide to participate in the contest and even gets runner-up. When the competition, though, is struck down by lightning, she's asked to take over as Little Miss Springfield. This, unfortunately, comes at a cost. She's forced to market cigarettes and other things that she doesn't morally really agree with to children, and ultimately she decides that this is not for her and speaks out against this. She does ultimately lose her title due to a mistake by her father, but when pressed about it, she tells her father that, it actually doesn't matter as much to her now, and she realizes that her moral integrity is more important than the shallowness of just wanting to be pretty. Now, when talking about whether or not Lisa has an eating disorder, there is one prime example episode, Sleeping with the Enemy in season 16. Right off the bat, this episode starts with Lisa's peers teasing her for her big bottom, as groundskeeper Willie says.
Lisa has a big butt. Lisa has a big butt. Shut up, I do not. Oh no, don't make Lisa mad. She might crush us all with her giant butt.
Shut up, you! Stop teasing the big bottom lass. She's just as God made her, plump as a Christmas goose.
Dad?
Lisa once again finds herself caught up in other people's perceptions of her and also surrounded by incompetent adults who only make the situation worse. Unfortunately, her father is a clear example of this in the next scene. Someone who is generally comically overweight or seen as comically overweight in the show, Homer doesn't really help Lisa when she is seeking solace from him. And in fact, he ultimately makes her feel worse as she starts to see herself in her father, who might possibly also have a binge eating disorder.
You want to know a little trick? To downsize my derriere, I just tie a sweater around it. See? Oh, Homer! You're wasting away to nothing! You simply must eat something! Oh, well, you're the boss! Oh, I love to see my man eat!
To make herself feel better, Lisa goes to the mall, and I feel like I just have to show you this full scene, and then we can talk about it after.
Maybe a different outfit would make me look thinner. Oh, this store makes me feel even worse about myself.
Oh, I heard she's back to her birth weight.
Must be nice.
Ew.
No, the body on this mannequin is all wrong.
I know! It's such an unrealistic standard for young... Huh?
Planing down the thighs, planing down the thighs. I make $4 an hour, planing down the thighs.
I feel like this mall scene almost goes on for way too long. There's so much uncomfortableness from Lisa and just the complete surrealness of the world around her and just the unrealistic standards that they're pushing, from literally using the term birth weight to seeing an adult shaving down a mannequin's legs. This, of course, is going to have effect on anyone's body image.
Hey, I don't look so bad.
Don't worry, Lisa. You can still find someone to love you.
Lisa at first is comforted by her reflection, but as you see, it ultimately distorts and becomes someone who is larger than she actually is. This is a common symptom or common mental illness with eating disorders, body dysmorphia, which can cause you to see yourself or obsess over a flaw that sometimes doesn't even really exist.
Lisa, just take a bite. One bite, that's all I ask.
Now I can't have toothpaste tonight.
From this moment on in the show, we see Lisa start a plethora of unhealthy behaviors, and specifically eating disordered behaviors, from refusing to eat, counting calories, over-exercising. Lisa is definitely going down a dark path, and I feel for her. Ultimately, the people around her don't really try and help and often make the issue worse, or aren't able to console the real issue at heart. And Lisa doesn't even understand her struggle either, having a really clear eating disorder thought that I feel like says a lot about the struggle from knowing that it shouldn't matter, but also being stuck in eating disordered thoughts.
I know this obsession with thinness is unhealthy and anti-feminist, but that's what a fat girl would say.
What Lisa says here is really important. We can see that her brain has started to rewire itself. Instead of focusing on things that she finds morally integrable, she's starting to focus on things that she knows are shallow and that she doesn't want to focus on.
This is the perfect test. If I can have one dab of frosting and then stop, I'll know I've conquered food at last. That was too easy. Okay, if I stop here, I still have some dignity.
Now Lisa does decide to go downstairs and try and conquer food. This sends her on what seems to be a binge. Now, if you know anything about eating disorders, this is very common for people who haven't been eating for a long period of time, and it starts an unhealthy cycle. Habits are formed during this time, and habits themselves are addicting. In fact, sometimes they're the most addicting part of addictions. I think a really important point made throughout this episode is how many times Lisa is met with adults with good intentions who ultimately make her feel worse. I think this is a common issue that happens with people who try and approach eating disorders. While you can have good intentions, sometimes just making further comments or pointing out the disorder can make it worse in and of itself. I want to say that we get a clear resolution in this episode. While we do see the mean girls get punished from their actions, The Simpsons leaves this episode open-ended and really shows that you can't just solve body issues in a 30-minute episode. And I think that that's such an important conversation to have.
And Lisa, what have you learned?
Nothing. Like many women, I still have an unhealthy obsession with my weight.
But talking about the problem is the first step towards a solution, right?
I guess, but there's a long way to go.
There is one more episode that most recently came out that I would like to talk about, but I do feel like this video is getting kind of long. So just to go over some points I wanted to make, I think The Simpsons does a really good job talking about eating disorders in this episode and showing that there are different aspects of Lisa that really are susceptible to this. Specifically, her struggle with being competent, but also finding that everyone around her just isn't willing to put their foot forward like she is. She's often a parentified child having to take care of the situations, and I think that this level of control in her life and different other symptoms we see out of Lisa makes her a prime example of someone who may develop an eating disorder. I think just like the episode, this video doesn't have a neat conclusion. Lisa still struggles with her body just like many recovered eating disordered people do as well. And I just think that the show was a really important version of representation. And I hope that I can show you guys more from the next episode. Thanks, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Be kind to yourselves. Bye.
Lise, as your brother, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to say. You're not ugly.